If you've been dumped and you're currently in no contact, I know you're probably wondering what your ex might be thinking right now. You're wondering what they might feel, whether they're going through the same thing as you, etc. So I decided to make this episode to share with you the 7 stages your ex will go through after the breakup. Also, to support what I'm saying and to give you a more concrete example, I'm going to share the story of a woman who left her partner and told her story on Reddit. I'll use this story to illustrate the different stages that the vast majority of exes go through when they decide to leave their partner. The first stage your ex will go through after the breakup will be relief. But that depends on the breakup. If you were someone who was suffocating, jealous, who became undesirable in their life, then it will be a relief. However, cheating is different. The person doesn't necessarily have a choice to leave you, and in that case, they'll feel more satisfaction than relief. The satisfaction of having been strong enough to leave you, and also the satisfaction of putting you two in a situation where you're now suffering. Because yes, in a way, your ex feels some satisfaction knowing that you're suffering because of the suffering they experience because of you. But if it's a breakup that happened from wear and tear, and not because of betrayal on your part, then it will be relief. Because your ex has already been thinking about it for a good part of the relationship. Several months, even several years for some. Usually, people don't leave you on a whim. If it happens, in the great majority of cases, it's a fake breakup. If you're in the middle of an argument and your ex says, "That's it, I'm done, I'm leaving you," then it's a fake breakup. And a short, no contact of a few days will do you good, and your ex will come back very quickly. Don't worry. However, if your ex is very calm and behaves in a kind way when announcing the breakup, then you can be sure that in their mind, they've already said to themselves, "Okay, this is the moment. I'm going to tell them." So I'm going to read you the beginning of the testimony I found on Reddit. "We argued every day over trivial things. He wasn't working anymore, and we barely shared any time together. I'd been thinking about leaving him for months, and it even made me sad, out of guilt, to imagine the relief I would feel when I was no longer with him. And one day, I decided to cut the cord with my fears and my guilt. I decided to pull the trigger and calmly told him that it was well thought out and that I had decided to leave. At that moment, I immediately felt freed from a weight, freed from an internal battle that had lasted for months. It wasn't just him I was freeing myself from, but all the arguments, his jealousy, and this daily life in which I could no longer picture myself. She confirms to us that relief is the first stage after a breakup, at least a breakup where there was no infidelity. And during this phase, they'll feel free, happy, they'll party, and take advantage of this boost of confidence to go out with new people. And this first stage of relief varies from one story to another. It depends on whether you were possessive and jealous in the relationship. It also depends on whether you went quickly or not into no contact. Because the faster you go into no contact, the shorter the relief phase will be for your ex. That's why, as I tell you in every podcast, it's crucial that you leave your ex alone as soon as possible after the breakup. The second stage your ex will go through, or the second phase if you prefer, will be excitement. I'm going to read you the next part of the testimony. I didn't realize it right away, but I was finally single. I didn't need anyone to plan a trip with, no one to justify myself to if I didn't come home at night. I no longer had someone on my back asking me to explain myself every time I did something, and I was even free to meet someone else if I wanted to. That's how I felt. And during that time, we were still in communication. He begged me to reconsider my decision. He made beautiful promises. He cried, and sent me tons of messages that I didn't even take the time to listen to. I told myself he should have thought about doing all that before the breakup, instead of making me those promises. In any case, I didn't care. I was happy again in this new life, and I told myself I should have left much earlier. So, as we can see, during the excitement phase, your ex realizes all the opportunities, a bit like a dog on a leash that you suddenly release in a park. Your ex will run off, sniff everywhere, and enjoy this new freedom. That's what happens. And let me tell you that trying to contact your ex during the excitement phase is a very bad idea. Forget it. They're busy and you're disturbing them. Yes, I know it's hard to hear, but it's the reality. Stage number 3 that your ex will go through is sadness. I'll read you the next part of the story. I'm single after 2 years of relationship. I dreamed of this breakup. I dreamed of this freedom, of finding the courage to do it. And now I just want to lie in bed and feel sad. Why are the conversations I have with the people around me so shallow, so superficial? Why can't I sleep right now? Where are all those sexy guys with good jobs I used to notice when I was in a relationship? Why are all these weird guys I met at parties adding me on social media? Did they really think they had a chance? That's when I realized that being single wasn't as fun as I imagined. So after the relief phase came the excitement phase, where your ex went out and had fun. At that moment, your ex is convinced that now everything will be wonderful. But at some point, they'll realize that this excitement phase doesn't last. And that's when the breakup will hit them. Unless you keep contacting them. Because if they feel the relief, then the excitement, and you, during that time, keep contacting them, they won't feel the pain of the breakup. They'll stay in that relief and excitement phase. Because you're still there, you're still available. For them to reach stage number 3, and then even stage 4, 5, 6, and 7, you have to stay in no contact. And starting from stage number 3, the sadness phase, if you've maintained no contact, your ex will finally feel the breakup. The 4th stage your ex will go through will be anger. In the testimony, she says, I did everything correctly. I stayed respectful when I left him. I did my best to be a good person every day. Why do I feel so alone and so sad? It's unfair. Why didn't he react before when I was trying to make him understand that he needed to move and find a job? Why didn't he let me breathe when I left, instead of harassing me with all those hurtful messages? Why did I waste so much energy trying to make this man happy when he didn't do what was necessary for us to travel and have a stable life? It's all his fault. If he had behaved differently, I wouldn't have had to break up with him. At this stage, your ex feels a lot of pride, and they won't contact you. Don't count on it. They want you to do it. They want you to fix things, but you must absolutely not do it. Otherwise, you'll go back to stage number 1, which is relief. And I know it's tempting, that if your ex is waiting for a message from you, it feels like it's the right moment to go back. But your ex doesn't want to get back together right now. And the only thing that will happen is that your ex will stop you cold when you talk about getting back together. Or they'll get back with you with a feeling of power over you. And that's definitely not what you want. So we stay in no contact and wait for our ex to reach out. I see you, little troublemakers. I'm watching you. Then comes stage number 5, which is guilt. I'll read you the next part of the story. I was filled with guilt for having done this to the man I still loved. I ruined such a beautiful story, which I destroyed just to selfishly explore new horizons, leaving behind a wonderful person despite his flaws. A person with whom I had spent some of the most beautiful moments of my life. He was ready to do anything for me, and I abandoned him. I need time, and so does he. I miss him, but I feel that it's not the right time to go back to him. Then comes stage number 6, which is confusion and uncertainty. They enter a huge internal battle. Some days they're happy with their situation, and some days they regret leaving you. When they start seeing someone new, they'll compare that person to you. With you, it was more fluid, easier, more authentic. Then they'll think about the past in saying to themselves that the things they left you for weren't that bad after all, especially compared to all the positive things you brought them. And this is also when something very powerful comes into play. The fading effect bias, which can be translated as the bias of fading effect. To explain, it's a psychological phenomenon in which memories linked to negative emotions tend to be forgotten much faster than positive ones. That's good news, isn't it? So it's from this moment that they start to slowly forget the bad things about the relationship and finally pay more attention to all that you added to their life. That's why they feel totally confused and regret their decision at this moment. Before, they still had those feelings for you, those emotions buried inside them, but they felt anger, pride, guilt, etc. But now that they don't feel all that anymore, now that the separation has shown them what it's like to be single, now that time has passed, They have good thoughts about you and think back with nostalgia to every moment spent by your side. They thought, and they were certain, that they had made the right decision. And now they feel like they made a mistake. It shakes them deeply. Which brings us to stage number 7, curiosity. I'll read you the next part of the story. After almost 9 months without any news from him, without any messages, I realized that I couldn't go more than a week without rereading our conversations with sadness. So I decided to reach out. It was stronger than me. I needed to talk to him. I needed to know how he was doing. And deep down, I hoped he hadn't replaced me. I spent an hour writing a simple, "Hey, hope you're doing well." Then I waited anxiously for his reply, which never came. 24 hours later, I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. He hadn't replied. Yet he had begged me for months to come back, saying he'd never find anyone like me. And now, I didn't exist in his eyes anymore. A week later, I decided to send him another, much longer message where I completely questioned myself and shared all my regrets about our breakup. He didn't reply to that one either. At that moment, my world collapsed. I realized that I would never see him again, that I would never look into his eyes filled with love again, that he would never kiss me again, and that I was completely out of his mind. Finally, the next day I sent him a third message where I begged him to reply, telling him that I didn't want him to ignore me. We eventually started to talk again little by little. He finally replied to that third message with a lot of disinterest, which made me want to win him back. And that feeling of having totally lost control of the situation and having totally lost him made me realize how important he was to me. We ended up reconnecting little by little, week after week, until we saw each other again and finally got back together. That breakup was painful for both of us, but necessary to build a brand new relationship. Much stronger. So, when you don't contact your ex for a long enough period, they'll reach stage number 7, which is the curiosity phase. And the desire to contact you will become too strong. At that moment, they'll do it. They'll send you that message, with the uncertainty that you'll reply. They don't know if currently you hate them or if, on the contrary, you still think about them, because after all, they hurt you with this breakup. And it's also this uncertainty that increases their level of interest. And all those question marks turn into hooks that will make them come back to you sooner or later. That's why no contact is so important. They can't feel all that if you keep sending them messages. And the day you receive that message after a no contact, it will be up to you to decide if you take the risk to reply or not. Just because your ex comes back doesn't mean they necessarily want to get back together with you. In general, exes are more curious to know how you're doing, what you still feel for them, what you might be thinking. That's why what I recommend, and what's very often best to do, is not to reply right away, but rather to let your ex a few days with the feeling of having really lost you, especially if your ex left you when you hadn't done anything serious, just because this person thought the grass was greener elsewhere. We agree that you're not an old sock that someone throws away and picks back up whenever they want. If your ex left thinking they deserve better than you and that this person comes back, you must not be at their disposal. And don't worry, if your ex wants to get back together with you, your ex will send you other messages behind. That's a certainty. Not replying to the first message allows to filter the really sincere exes who want to get you back and the exes who just want to boost their ego by checking if you're still hooked. By the way, tell me in the comments if you'd like me to talk a little bit about how to react the day your ex comes back, how to behave. So there you go. These were the 7 stages that the majority of exes go through after leaving a relationship. Relief or satisfaction, depending on the reason, excitement, sadness, anger, guilt, confusion, then finally, curiosity. To conclude, if you look closely, your ex will more or less go through the same stages as you, but in a reversed way. Because as the one who leaves starts to feel that pain, that regret, that confusion, that guilt, that sadness, etc., the one who's been left, on his side, slowly accepts the situation, rebuilds little by little, and despite everything, day after day, feels better. In any case, if he stays in no contact. So take care of yourself and do things for yourself. And the day you really don't expect it anymore, that message will arrive. Because the time it took you to reach that stage where, that's it, you're not even that interested anymore in your ex, it's the same time it takes your ex to reach stage number 7. And at that moment, the situation will be reversed. It will be you who will have the cards in hand. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Feel free to comment with ideas of podcasts you'd like me to talk about. And don't forget that if it's not yet done, I created a 10-step questionnaire that I put in the description of each podcast to give you freely my opinion about your situation. So stay strong, stay in no contact, keep working on yourself, and everything will go wonderfully well. Alright, kisses.